Jay Grabby says, Russ, tell me Tocchet isn't the guy. Certainly feels like he's going to be. The report came out from Darren Dreger earlier this morning that, and it's the same thing that I've been talking about on this show, that Ant and I talked about on this show and on Snow the Goalie, and Bundy's talked about, that Rick Tocchet is the number one priority for the Flyers, the Penguins, the Bruins. Dreger put out today the Kraken instead of the Penguins, but still that he's the number one option. And I keep coming back to, I don't understand the infatuation with Rick Tocchet. I do not understand why there are so many teams that are willing to look past what I would say is a mediocre at best coaching career. Now, granted, we've said this before on the show. He's had to coach in like Arizona, so not exactly a great place to be. But I am absolutely beside myself with the way that people kind of look at Tocchet as a top name on the coaching market when I don't think he is. And I think that the bigger concern, if you're a Flyers fan, is that this guy does not have playoff success. This guy has not necessarily shown an ability to build, develop, and grow players, which I just do not like. I fundamentally think is the wrong thing. If you go back to Danny Briere's end of season press conference, he said, we want a teacher. We want somebody who's going to be a communicator, right? There was a certain thing that happened out in Vancouver this year where their number one player, their former 100-point man, Elias Pettersson, and JT Miller had some kind of an issue that was viewed as being longer than just this season. It was a longer-term issue between the two players. And Tocchet was unable to get those guys to resolve whatever the issue was. And ultimately, Vancouver had to trade away JT Miller, which made them a worse team. And Tocchet apparently tried to get Elias Pettersson to change the way that he plays. And that also might have been a mistake. Now, I'm going to just really quickly bring you guys over to this really quick, just so you have a general idea of what Tocchet has done in his coaching career. And like, listen, I know exactly where some people are going to go. They're going to look at the Jack Adams Award, which is fantastic, which he did achieve in Vancouver. But I'm not exactly sure that that Vancouver team has a 1C in Elias Pettersson. This team does not. I think that Vancouver team on the whole is a better team than this Flyers team. But let me see based on the internet connection here, if I can even try to share. Uh-oh, I might not be able to share it. Okay, I can't share it. That's not great. All right, it's fine. We'll figure it out. Yep. I got to close that out. Okay, I can't. While I'm on the road, there will be no screen sharing. God help me. Okay, anyway, Tocchet. When he coached with the Lightning, which Yzerman at the time, or looking back on it, said that he might not have given Tocchet a fair shake. Had a 52-point season in 66 games played, 82 points with the Lightning in the 2009-2010 season. And then he was let go. He didn't take another head coaching gig for 8 years. He then coached Arizona for 4 years, where they finished 8th, 4th, 5th, and 5th. Then went on to Vancouver in the 2022 season. They finished 6th. The 2023-2024 season, finished in 1st, had 109 points on the season. The team went 50, 23, and 9. And then this past season, everything collapsed. Everything fell apart. And they technically went over 500, right? 38, 30, and 14. But if you add up overtime losses and regular losses like you should, that's under 500. It's 38 wins and 44 losses of any variety. Not a great season. And again, you had a legitimate locker room issue between Pettersson and JT Miller. So I can't go out of my way to tell you that I'm thrilled with the idea. Now, it doesn't mean that he's a bad coach. It doesn't mean that he's the worst coach ever. It doesn't mean that it's bound to be a failure. But if the idea here was to kind of rejuvenate the fan base and recharge and re-energize the fan base, Rick Tocchet's not that guy. It's not going to work. Like, that's not going to be the thing that's going to get people back in on this team. Now, in fairness, let's go with like a guy whose name was kind of floated out there, Pat Ferschweiler. Ferschweiler's name recognition isn't going to get anybody going. Then you say, all right, well, he won a national championship. And then you're going to have some detractors who say, well, Hackstall came out of college and that didn't work. And you go, all right, but Hackstall didn't win the national championship. Ferschweiler just did. Ferschweiler's also been an assistant coach in the NHL before. Name recognition wise, I don't know if it really matters if it gets people going. Alain Vigneault had good name recognition. It kind of worked for a little bit, and then it didn't. John Tortorella had a ton of name recognition. It kind of worked, and it ultimately didn't. Tocchet will be a guy who could be theoretically viral when it comes to the way that he's going to interact with the media and some quotes that he's going to have? Is he going to be a kinder, gentler Rick Tocchet as the coach of the Philadelphia Flyers? Is he going to try to push all the buttons that a John Tortorella used to? What's it going to look like? Is it ultimately going to lead this team to the postseason and not just get them to the playoffs, but help them to build them into that Stanley Cup contender over an extended period of time, which is what the whole idea, the whole plan has been since Danny Briere was brought in? I'm just not sure. And if you go back to the firing of Tortorella, from the second Tortorella was fired, Tocchet's name popped up. Even when he was still under contract with Vancouver, a lot of people said, all right, well, there you go. There's your former Flyer. There's your guy who's friends with Jonesy. Are they just going to hire one of the old boys club? And if he ends up coming here, it could end up being a good hire. It's entirely possible that it's a bad hire. I've said this consistently now. I think Briere is going to do enough to tweak this roster this offseason that no matter who the head coach is, pending, the team remaining relatively healthy, they'll make the playoffs next year. So Tocchet will look like an absolute genius, getting them from fourth in the draft lottery, sixth draft pick in the actual draft itself, getting them from that kind of a lottery-bound team to a playoff team. He'll look like a genius. But I think anybody could have done that. I think that that's how much better this team is going to be next year, even without knowing what moves they're going to make. I'm just convinced that they're going to effectively try to get this thing moving in the right direction. So make of that what you will.